Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Chris Whitehead, and in this webinar we'll provide a brief introduction and demonstration of Proteus. Proteus is one of Solutions PT's business continuity and disaster resilience solutions. With Proteus we protect your mission critical applications and systems from a wide range of threats. Cybersecurity is an expansive subject. There are many threats that are continually evolving, and ransomware is at the forefront of this. So with Proteus we can actually leverage some of our internal technologies to be able to spot ransomware infections early, which means we can recover that manufacturing data very quickly. We do this by monitoring all our protected devices and backup points for ransomware and the signatures that these leave. So we typically see a great deal of new data changes, as well as a vast amount of encrypted files that appear. So upon this triggers the alarm bells for us, and this is where the Proteus technology comes into its own, because we can recover from these ransomware infections very quickly. By proving each and every one of our backup points, we know we've got the confidence that if an incident was to occur, that we've got multiple recovery options, so we can actually get you back up and running very quickly. Okay, so now I'm actually logged into our Proteus vault here. This is a demonstration unit I use on a fairly regular basis. So initially when we first log in, we've got quite a simplistic interface, and that the whole point of the entire Proteus methodology is that it is simple to use, it's simple to implement, and should the worst happen, it's simple to use to be able to recover your data. You don't need great deals of technical skill set on site to do this. So at a glance, using the little colour chart we have here, I can see exactly how much data I've currently got protected, and it shows me how much space for expansion or new systems I need to protect in the future. We can actually see on this demo box I've got two systems protected, so one is a SCADA node and one is just a basic laptop. So if we have a quick look at some of the settings of how easy it is to modify these systems, if I have a quick look at the laptop here, so if I have a look at the agent settings, there's a few key features, and I'm not going to go through each and every one of them because this is only an introduction. So if we have a quick look at the local backup and retention settings for this, it's a very easy to use interface. Wherever I have a green box, I get a backup. So I can see that currently this laptop is only backed up Monday through Friday, 9 AM and 2 PM. So if I wanted to increase this, I can simply put additional boxes wherever I want, and I can actually do a few at the weekend, and pretty much press apply. That is as much as needed to do to change the frequency for what I'm actually backing up. Now I can actually as well change the retention settings. So currently we keep the daily backups for 7 days, we keep the weekly backups for a month, and we keep the monthly backups for the rest of the year. If I wanted to, I can change these settings as well. Now if you opt for it, we also have a cloud option as well, so we can back up the contents of the vault to a secure UK cloud. And this also has the same settings that allows me to pick any one of the backup points that we've got and actually nominate them to be replicated over to the cloud. So realistically, you would maybe set these so they occur on days or times of the day where your production isn't going to be affected by an increased use of internet activity. So typically out of hours or early morning when there's not as much going on the network. We also have the options for screenshot verifications. So these actually allow us to prove the backups. So when we take a backup point, we nominate which one of the backup points we want to use, and I've currently got it set to the first backup point of the day. The system then autonomously takes that backup point and mounts it as a complete virtual machine and spins it up into its actual booted state. Now it does this with the interface is not connected to the network, so it's not going to impact any systems of the same name, same IP address that are out there. And once it actually reaches the login prompt to the Windows desktop screen, this is where it then takes that screenshot to prove that the recovery point is bootable, and this then gets emailed to you. So we've actually got physical proof each day that the backups we're taking are recoverable. Now we can actually expand on this with backup verification scripts. So this might be a case of you may have a SQL database or an application that starts that isn't visible from that Windows login screen. So rather than just the Windows actual layer of the system being available, the internal applications too. So this allows us to upload our own custom script so we can query inside the Windows system and actually prove that the services or applications that run in the background are also started up and are working correctly. Now, as I mentioned earlier in this video, ransomware is quite a key topic at the moment. So by default, all the backup points that we take, we look for signs of ransomware infection. So this allows us to kind of intervene before it spreads and allows us to recover very quickly. Now, I say by default we enable this on all the backup points for all the systems that we protect with Proteus. So I say some of the key signatures of ransomware is a great deal of delta change. So the first backup we take with Proteus is a full backup. Every backup thereafter is an incremental. Now, being incremental, we only see small amounts of data change, so the backups complete very quickly. That allows us to take backups on a very frequent basis, which lowers the recovery point objectives. So typically we try and set these for around once an hour for numerous systems, and we stagger them so it's not all happening at once. This allows us, so in the event of an outage or a ransomware infection, that the most data we would lose for that system is just an hour's worth of data. We then have multiple options around how we recover, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But we also have quite a detailed reporting system. So what we can see here in these email notification section is we can get like screenshot verifications, weekly reports, any warnings, critical errors, etc. And it's quite simply a case of I can specify where these go to the actual end users, whether it's going to an integrator who's working for you're working on your applications, as well as actually, because Proteus is delivered as a managed service, we see a complete copy of all these. So if something doesn't complete properly because the backup hasn't run, or there's an error, or we see a ransomware infection, these highlight to us as critical warnings that we then react to. Okay, so now we've got the actual systems protected. In the event of something actually going disastrously wrong, for example, the network's become disconnected or the actual system's gone offline, we've actually got numerous recovery systems. And I'm going to talk very briefly about some of these options, and we're going to show just two of them today. So first of all, we select the system that we need to restore, and then we have a handful of recovery types. So the first one is a typical file restore. And these complete very quickly. It allows us to pick any one of the backup points that we've taken for this system. So for example, I'll pick the 9 a.m. Thursday one there and hit start file restore. So it actually gives me the option to mount this as a Samba share. So once I hit mount, you'll see it completes fairly quickly. I'm just going to grab that URL there, and if I click on start, go into there, press enter, what we'll see, if I just resize this window a little, I've actually got the complete file structure of this backup point, so I can actually dig down into the actual system. So I can go to documents and settings, have a quick look at the default user there, and there's a couple of things in that, my desktop, etc. So the complete folder structure and file structure is actually there available as a network share. So this allows me to pick out any files to then either restore them to running system or copy them off elsewhere without actually impacting the running system that's out there. So when that's actually complete, we can just hit stop and unmount, and it still says I've got an open connection there, so I did this a bit too quickly, but that then removes that restore point. So then actually we have a few other options. So if it's not just a file we need to recover, maybe the entire system's offline and just doing a file restore is not going to cut it. We need to get something back up and running quickly. This gives us a handful of options. So one is local virtualization, which is where we use the current local vault that's supplied, so the memory processor and hard drive that's in there, to actually mount that backup point as a virtual machine. So this then gives me a handful of options, and we'll show this shortly. Another option is if we've actually lost the vault as well, so if we've also got the cloud services, we can virtualize it in the cloud. So the private UK data center that we've got has tons and tons of processors and memory available there, so we can pretty much spin up all the VMs that we've got protected actually in the cloud there. We've also got the option of doing a bare metal restore, so if the actual hardware was damaged and you've source new hardware, we can actually do a bare metal restore back to the base system. And we actually use a technology called hardware independent restoration, so HIR. This allows us to use a complete image-based backup from, for example, a HP machine, but yet restore it to a Dell. Now, I know a lot of people are probably going to question this, but the whole point of the process is when the restore starts to take place, rather than just blindly writing the actual image back to the system to hope it works, the restore process queries the new hardware to find the drivers that are required. So this is then where they're pulled from the central driver database and injected back into the restore point, so the actual machine will boot up and work correctly the first time. We also have a diskless restore as well, which is maybe suited more to HMI type devices and panels. So in the event of the screen and the actual processor and memory being okay, and it's just the hard drive that's failed, the diskless restore allows us to literally do that. So we do a restoration of the system, but without the disk. So essentially, the processor, memory, screen, and everything else is used on the local device, but the actual hard drive is provided as a virtual instance from the Proteus Vault. We've then got the standard like VMware uploads, a Hyper-V upload, as well as the export image options. So if we wanted to extract this system and then run it on a hypervisor, whether it be a Type 1 hypervisor like an ESXi system or a Type 2 hypervisor where we maybe run it on VMware Workstation or something like that, the options are there. We can basically either force it to upload it direct to the server, or we can export it as an image and then mount it ourselves. But one of the fastest ways to recover one of these lost systems is local virtualization. So I'm going to select the local virtualization option there. And again, I can pick any one of the recovery points, so I'll pick a different one this time. I'll pick the latest one we've taken, which was a couple of days ago. And we're going to hit Start Virtualization. So actually what I've now got on the left is the option to change the virtual machine specifications. So we can see at the top here, I've currently got about 13 gigs of RAM available from the 16 this device has, and currently 4 CPU cores available. So again, being a virtual machine, I can move these parameters if I wanted to. When we take the backup, we look at the actual hardware, so I know that the machine that was backed up for this is a dual core with 4 gig of memory. I've then got a handful of options around the network as well. So actually I want to do this as kind of a sandbox environment, so I'm going to leave the network disconnected, but I can bridge it to any one of the network adapters that's actually in the device. So if this is connected to your plant network and your enterprise network, you'd pick the interface that's connected to your plant network, and then we're literally going to start the device up. So I'm not going to change any of them settings, just going to hit apply there. And what we'll actually see now, if I start VM, the process is started now, and we're basically going to take the backup point and take an entire copy of it as a separate chunk on the hard drive, and this is then converted to a VM, and then the VM starts automatically. So what we'll now see is it's actually preparing the restore point, and this will take just a couple of seconds. Okay, and now you'll see the screen's changed, and actually while this is booting up, I'm going to talk through a few of the features. So we actually secure the backup points as well. So in the event of us having to, we can connect to either a VNC connection on the system, or we can use RDP. Now I'm going to use RDP today, but the point is when we do these by default, even if you haven't set them up on the machine, we encrypt them. So if I wanted to connect through VNC, I would have to use the VNC password that's generated there, or if I wanted to connect through RDP, I'd have to use the RDP password. So I am going to use the RDP password for this one, so I'm just going to copy this here. So what you'll see now is when this boots up in a second, I've got an option there of being able to connect via RDP. I could use the IP address that's here if I wanted to go in via VNC, but you'll also see that the link changes if I want to click on this here. I can actually use an in-browser, assuming your browser supports HTML5, an in-browser VNC type connection, so you don't need any additional type systems to be able to connect to this. Okay, so now the VM is actually up and running correctly. I'm going to connect via RDP, so I'm just going to grab that password there, quickly copy this one. We'll connect on the link to connect via RDP. This opens up the RDP file. I'm just going to tell it to connect, put the password in, and connect straight through. So what you'll see is I've now got a fully virtualized copy of that recovery point. So I've still got all the standard files and folders that are in there. So if I have a quick look in the documents directory, I've still got all my custom documents and file structure that's there, complete set, not just the Delta changes. And likewise, I've got all the applications available as well. So this should actually be an InTouch system, so I could actually open InTouch from there as well. So the benefit of being able to do this is we've got very, very low recovery point objectives. We're taking backups every hour on the hour, and we've got very low recovery time objectives. So in the event of something actually going wrong, we can recover in a matter of minutes. Quite simply in this instance, it's the time it takes for the VM to be virtualized and then actually boot up and start the applications. So a recovery point of less than an hour and recovery time objective in just a few minutes. Thank you very much for your time today. If you require any further information about the Proteus technology you've seen today, please drop us an email. You can find more information on our website. Alternatively, please give us a call on the number on screen. Thank you.